Hey, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Welcome to Meet Pie. So it's in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, and we're gonna chat about Python. So that's what we do
Yay!
every week. Yes. So this week we have a very long interview. We had a very long interview, so it's recorded. Sorry about that because our guest is actually based in the United States, and he is. Could you introduce him, please? Like, let people know
Yes.
because his title is
So
super, like, funny.
yes, yes. So he is a author. So he's a writer, a coder, time lord, and also CEO of his games company. His name is Jason McDonald, and we met him because he's also part of the EuroPython organizing community for this year. And it was an amazing interview. Like, we had so much fun chatting to him, didn't we, Chuck?
Yeah, we do actually. So it's kind of getting a bit long because he got too many like good things to tell us. So also we are very curious. So yeah,
We all got carried away.
yeah. So that's why today we're gonna give you a little bit of the news. We try to go through them quickly, and then we would play the interview. We'll stay on the chat. Don't worry, we are still here. It's just that the interview was recorded. And afterwards we'll just come back, say goodbye. If you have anything special you want to tell us, then type in the chat as well. So we'll still be here, and so maybe I would just start by sharing my screen for all those news that we have for you. So let me see. I'm still new to this, and here we go. So yeah, it's very small. Let me make it bigger. First of all, the election is finished, the Python Software Foundation election. So it's the board of director elections. So funny about the thing is, like, because I think I am promoting it like a bit on Twitter or something, that people thought that I'm kind of one of the candidates, but I'm not. Actually, I was not the candidate. But congratulations to our new elected board directors. And actually, I know a few of them, so which is good. I think they're totally like I trust them. They would lead this Python Software Foundation in. That's the cookie banner. Oh my god! Like, why do you use cookie and GA like Python Software Foundation? So if I'm in the board, maybe I'll be like, maybe we shouldn't track our members using Google like analytics. But anyway, um, yeah. So that could be like if I run for the election, that could be my slogan. Like, remove that GA thing in the website. But anyway, I'm just joking here.
No more cookies. No more
No more
cookies.
cookies.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. You cookie monsters. Well, okay. So yeah. What else can I say? I don't know. Like, congratulations to them, and let's move on to PyCon India. Oh, this is super cool. I just like this. I haven't looked at it before. Can I zoom in? Wait, be weird. It still look
Yeah.
good. Because like the logo, first of all, I really loved it, and the color.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's an oriental color. I really like it, even though it's like PyCon India. But I think India also got this like have red and yellow theme going on. I love the
Yes.
colors in India, like, because if you see pictures of festivals, like, or these like events, celebrations in India, the colors, oh, amazing. They got like
Mm.
really good. So yeah, PyCon India is going online. Congratulations.
Yes. So
Yay.
the CFP closes a day before my birthday, the 14th of August.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the actual conference happens on the 2nd and 3rd of October. So if you have a proposal, run and submit your proposal. Are you submitting, Chuck?
I think I will, because I will always want to go to PyCon India. I think my talk was selected 2 years ago, but because the announced, like, they notify me like only a month before, so I can, like, at that time, my job is not as flexible, so I can't really arrange my holidays and stuff. So, and also at that time I have some personal stuff going on, so unfortunately I can't make it. So yeah, but like, if it's online, then obviously I'll try to do it. I still want to visit India one day. Like, it's an amazing country. I really want to go and see. And yeah.
Yeah, I really want to go as well. But I think that for starters, PyCon India online would be quite a cool experience. And I might submit for this one as well.
Look at the design. This is amazing. I really love the logo there. Like I loved it. Oh my god.
It's really
Oh,
nice,
I love the
yes.
color.
Yes.
I love like all this like this. Maybe there's some history with like behind this what do you call those pattern thing? My mouse is pointing it right now. So maybe
Ornament.
we could ask the organizer. We need to have a chat with them and say like, oh my god, like how could you design such amazing things? I really loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me write it down here. Contact the PyCon India organizers for an interview on Meet Pi because we
Yeah.
love the design.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. Actually. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's consider that. Okay. So
Cool.
next thing, Australia. Like we kind of go to South Asia, and now we go further down and further east to Australia.
Oceania.
Yeah. What's going on?
Perfect. So another PyCon online as well. Now the CFP for this one is still open, but closes on the 12th of July. So again, if you have a proposal, just go ahead and submit it. Now they have something really, really, really cool on their proposal submission. There is that idea of trying to eliminate bias on the talk selection. So if you're going to submit your proposal, they have a little bit of a different scheme for you to submit it. So your personal data and everything that identifies you as you, not only name, but gender, anything is all going to be separated on your profile. And then your proposal has to be completely bias-free, completely anonymized. Because they're trying to eliminate the bias in the tech world. And I thought it was quite a valid submission point to make. I quite like the way they structured everything.
But the thing is, like, I have to really like adjust my proposal because, for example, I got a talk that is talking. Actually, it's the talk that I was given in PyData Amsterdam. Then I'll be like, well, I still have to identify I'm kind of like a minority in the group, right? So even though I could make it as fake as possible, but like, still like at least they know that I'm not for example, a white man. So it's
And
gonna
you're
be.
talking about minorities anyway.
Yeah, so it's a bit difficult, but I think like most conference they would I think they're not the only conference that would anonymize the speaker. So like your speaker profile won't be seen when the committee looking at your proposal, but of course they still keep your contact detail because they have to let you know if you got selected. But I will have to have a look to see if I have to adjust some of my talk proposal because of that. But a lot of my talk, I just gotta tell you like what I gotta talk about in there, so it should be kind of anonymized in some way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but like we've written proposals together already, and I know kind of the way you do it. You kind of do it anonymized anyway.
Yeah, except the topic that I gotta talk about is kind of revealing who I am. For example, if I talk about let's say how to design the Python client of Terminus DB, then like people, if they really want to know, they would find me, because it's a kind of, we don't have a lot of actually we don't have a lot of maintainer in that yet, and at least like they can eliminate to a small group of people. So I don't know. I have to like really see how this is gonna work, and see what we gotta do. Maybe I gotta select the talks that's like more general to submit. But we'll see. We still got time. We still got like 2 weeks to go.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, 3 weeks actually. So yeah. Oh, good.
And again, this is another conference I want to go. I want to go to Australia. I've only been once in my life, and I was 7 when I went there because my.
I haven't been to Australia yet.
Yeah, because my grandpa immigrated there like even before I was born. So yeah, he kind of like stayed there like until he died. He stayed there. So yeah, so I visited him only once in my life. Actually, I don't have like a lot of memory of him, but yeah.
Yeah. In the land now under. Okay, well, next year. We go,
right.
We go to Australia next year. Next year, that's it.
Yeah, next year we'll go. Okay. So JungleCon.
Go ahead.
JungleCon virtual conference is free to attend. So again, it's in September, and it's super close, is it? Like this is September. Oh, okay, so maybe a week after, or 2 weeks after. So yeah, but it's virtual, and I've never been to JungleCon, and maybe this will be my first, because like before I would be like it's difficult to justify I go there because of work and stuff, um, but yeah, it's a 2 day conference, and it's free, is it? Because you talk about is it free?
Yes, it's free entry. Yes, there's a button there in the.
Ooh, yes. I
Yeah.
overlooked it. Yeah, why not? Let's go there. And
It was supposed to be in Porto, in Portugal.
yes, I know. I want to go. But again, it's difficult to justify going to a JungleCon because my work is not related to Jungle. So, but if it's online, then I think I have no excuse for that. So,
And then,
and
like,
it's free.
yes, and it's free. Yes. And then, since you're talking about so many conferences, it's not Python related, but on the 30th of June starts the DevRelCon. So it's our conference.
Oh yes, yes. I think it's a event. Like, kind of like PyDate Amsterdam. It's kind of like it's not like a whole day conference, but it's kind of like you can attend the talks and all this stuff. It's kind of a month long. I think they have all the talks scattered for the whole month. So yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, loads of conferences, everyone. Come on. Let's submit a
Yep.
few talks.
Yeah. So shall we go to the interview? Actually, let me reshare my screen because yeah, stop sharing because I have to make sure that I share the audio of it. I'm not sure that I've done that. And yep, Chrome tab. Oh my god, it's difficult. Okay, right. So let's enjoy the interview. So see you afterwards then. I'll be in the chat. We will be in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. So, welcome. We have here with us today Jason McDonald. Hello, Jason.
Hi.
Hello, Jason.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's amazing to have you here. So, a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction to you, and then you're going to tell us everything that you think we're missing out on. Okay?
Okay. All right.
So perfect. So I saw in some places that you introduce yourself as a hacker, a speaker, an author, and a time lord.
Yes.
And you're also CEO of Mousepad Media. You also
Media.
Perfect. You also work in Dev.co, and you're also part of the EuroPython organization, right?
Yes. I am. Although ironically, none of those things pay money.
Yeah.
It's life in a nutshell for you.
Yeah. All the exciting stuff, like a lot of them, kind of doesn't require, doesn't give you money.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
Yeah, most of community work, well, but we do it for love, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
So is there anything else that you do then? So how do you pay the bills?
Well, it helps that I am also my mother's caretaker. So my mother, whom I love fiercely, I help take care of her. She's been my caretaker for the longest time because, and I'll talk more about this later. I think, but I had a head injury when I was 16 years old, and it took me a lot of time to get back to being able to do this whole human functioning thing. And so she's been my caretaker. Well, she got hit with some medical things a couple of years ago, and so now the roles are kind of reversed. So I'm taking care of her now. So that helps. So get family support to keep going. Until I can find proper work, because hopefully the medical things she's dealing with they're, as far as we know, they're not permanent. They're just long term.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. Now, let's go straight to the business then. So tell me, how's your relationship with Python? So when did it all start? You started as a C programmer, wasn't it?
Actually, ironically, I started the other way around. I learned C++ after I learned Python, but I became very proficient in Python after I became proficient in C. So it's kind of an odd sequence of learning things. So I actually started out learning Visual Basic.net, I have since repented and recovered of that language, but you know, if there's any .NET programmers watching, you don't have to get your tail in a knot. It's perfectly decent language if you don't mind some of the esoteric keywords. But I'm not. It just personally isn't my cup of tea. So, but that was my first exposure to programming, and I realized very quickly it wasn't going to do exactly what I needed it to do for what I was building, which was an early prototype of the game I'm still working on. And so I decided to pick up Python because I had seen mentions of it in passing, and I knew that it worked with Blender. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, let's learn more about Python. So my first exposure to the language was I went through the tutorial and went, this is not making sense. So I log on to the Python IRC chat room, and I ask, how do you declare a data type on a variable? And I still remember Hab Nabbit, God love him, responds back, you're a data type. And goes on to explain that Python doesn't have static typing. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It's not on the name. And it's like, okay, this is an interesting way of looking at programming. So I learned how to Python from the guys in the IRC room, to whom I really do kind of owe my career. And it's fun now because now I'm answering questions right alongside them, and it's a surreal feeling to go, I actually know what I'm talking about.
That feeling is great. That feeling is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, surreal too.
Right. So that's very interesting. Like you learn the difficult stuff first, and then you you go back to like Python, which is more beginners friendly. So.
Exactly. But then I, like I mentioned, I wound up going into C++. So I went over into Adobe Flash and ActionScript, and became I was in the top 5% of answers of answerers on Stack Overflow for ActionScript while I was in that. I actually built a language in it. That code has been burned and sealed away. Yeah. That is terrible code. I built a language in ActionScript using regular expressions as a parser. Sorry. We're going to be shocked at this. Anyway, but then I was starting to build the game I had dreamed of building. And then I found out, funny thing about rumors in tech is that they're usually true. And I found out that Adobe Flash was slated to be discontinued. Well, yeah. Thanks, because I had already sunk $800 into it in 3 years worth of work.
Whoa.
But that's when I decided to switch to building my own thing. And I had learned C++ at that point. That was the one programming class I did with C++ in college. My main focus was communication. And anyway, so I became very familiar with C++, but I was still, playing with Python. But then when I really started getting into Python more seriously again, I was now coming with this rather accidental familiarity with undefined behavior and memory management and how memory is allocated on the computer. So then when I encountered Ned Batchelder's talk about how names and types actually work on Python, that just completely revolutionized my perception of the language. And I was like, this is beautiful, this is amazing, you have to try this. And I started writing good simple Python. So
yeah,
that sounds amazing.
It sounds easier to write a game in Python than in C++.
Easier.
Yeah.
Has to be in bigger quotes.
Yeah.
Now, jumping from the language you really like to one that I'm quite sure you don't love as much. So do you want to talk a little bit about your, let's say,
well-documented hatred?
Yeah, of JavaScript. Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to pull a punch on that one. I'm developing a reputation for this. So I really actually have to put at the front of this kind of a disclaimer. Any language that you can sit down and you can build working software in, fine, great. I'm a strong believer that everything has a place. Every tool has a use. And so if there are people out there who like JavaScript because they can create good software in it, I'm not telling them to quit by any means. One of my favorite languages is C++, and there's a lot of people that go, oh, it's such an esoteric language. I don't personally find it so. I can make it work for me. I can make it do things well. And I know there are people who have that relationship with JavaScript as well. So this is not me just dumping on a language I don't personally like. But my hatred of JavaScript is kind of based on the fact that it is, as I explained to one person, it took me a while to figure out how to summarize this, but I said basically most JavaScript development is just the art of approximating your program's goal by attempting to control undefined behavior. There is so much and even JavaScript fans will admit ultimately to the fact that there is so much unpredictable behavior in JavaScript.
Yeah, everything is undefined.
Unpredictable behavior is bad, and anytime a language claims to be magic and just adapt to what you're thinking without you really having to put the thought in, you need to run the other direction, because abstractions are not there to save us thinking. They're there to save us typing. You still have to understand what's going on underneath. Otherwise, you have no idea what your code's actually doing. And if you don't know the algorithms, if you don't know the data structures, don't have any idea of what the implementation is doing, then you wouldn't understand why you wouldn't, jumping to another language, why you would not, say, use Java's standard sort function on something implemented as a linked list. Why wouldn't you use it? Because it's dual pivot quicksort, which is an unstable sorting algorithm, which unnecessarily orders elements which are already in their correct positions, which has massive performance hits on linked lists. If you did not know anything about linked lists or sorting algorithms, or which algorithm Java was even using, you would not realize this was a performance problem in your code. The only thing you're saving from that abstraction is having to actually implement dual pivot quicksort or implement the linked list. But you should still know that's what's going on behind the scenes. JavaScript hides so much, and it tries to adapt magically to the context to where it can behave in really surprising ways. And surprises are bad. Surprises are bugs waiting for the right conditions. So my hatred of JavaScript is basically just the fact it is, and I think that's not really JavaScript's fault. It was created for a very specific thing, which was to manipulate HTML and CSS in very specific ways dynamically on the web page, for which it does very well.
Yeah.
It was never intended to fill the role of a system language, of a machine learning, of data analysis. It was not designed for this purpose. It was jerry-rigged for this purpose by a bunch of people who thought it was a neat language and it could do everything. A language that does everything doesn't do anything particularly well. Contrast it with Python, which has very specific cases. It's good at many things, but there's only a few specific things that we claim Python excels at. And we don't pretend that Python is the best language for systems development or the best language for multiprocessing. Actually, if you're doing multiprocessing, you probably should not be using Python.
Yeah. Or you should have very heavy plugin to use together with Python. You may have other interpreters or other plugins to help. But I agree with I won't say that I hate JavaScript. I do have problem with it because in my work I have to deal with a lot of JavaScript, and I found that compared to Python, it's so difficult to just reading the code. We have get an idea what this is doing. I have to really a lot of time go to ask my colleague what you actually do here. Just by reading the code is so difficult. But for some projects like open source, you don't get the chance to ask the maintainer that much. That is what are you doing here? So really relies on documentation, and in the case that we are kind of working very fast, in a high speed, and nobody really spend a lot of time in writing internal documentations, then it's a bit difficult.
And that ironically leads into the other unpopular opinion I have, which is that comments are a good thing. I get in so much trouble for that, but I had the nerve to write a document, a commenting standard, and I think I accidentally coined a phrase. I can't be absolutely certain, but I'd never heard this phrase before in my entire career until I started saying it, and the next thing I know, I was hearing it everywhere. And that is that you comment why, not what. And I'm hearing professors say this now. I'm going, did I catch on? This is just surreal. But in my view, commenting should be mandatory. But you need to be commenting your intention for the code. Don't be rewriting what the code is doing. Anybody can know what the code is doing, or they should be able to if it's anywhere near decent. I think I don't agree with Robert Martin on most things, but I think he was correct in saying that if you have to have a comment, I'm paraphrasing him, but if you have to have a comment to explain what the code's doing, the code is wrong.
Yeah.
But
why you do that? Yeah.
But you should have a comment explaining why it's there, because sure, I can tell you're iterating over all the elements in a dictionary, but why? What is your goal? And so I think a well comment. I wrote the commenting showing intent standard, and the idea is that your comments should make up a total language agnostic specification, so you can see what is supposed to be going on from this upper level perspective. It's not describing how it's happening; it's just describing what should be the outward expression of the behavior, the business logic, or the specification. And those comments should be such that you can take those and you can rewrite the entire program in a completely different language using completely different patterns, completely different paradigms, and it still works. Because when you have that, then it takes you a couple of minutes to figure out what the programmer was doing in a particular section rather than 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, shall we put that in a pub actually? Like
Maybe we should.
Yeah. Of like how to write Python documentations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the difference between documentation and comments is that comments are for the developer, documentation is for the user. Because oftentimes the two are blurred. They just go, okay, well, I'll just do my doc strings, and then that'll be my documentation and my comments. Well, it's a failure on both points, because the doc string doesn't tell me why that function is there. And that doc string doesn't really tell the user how to use the program. It just tells them about the function. Most API documentation is like teaching someone how to use a toaster by explaining the electrical specification of the heating element. It's not going to help anybody.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that like working in a team is very important to have comments. Like sometimes I'll be like, well, we are lucky like now that we're very adoptive remotely. So sometimes if I ping my colleague out of office hour, they will still reply. But if you have nobody to ask, it's like, could you tell me why is there? Can I delete it? Like, or sometimes like, why do you delete my stuff? Because like there's lack of communication.
Yeah.
There,
Or God forbid, it's your own code 6 months later and you're just grabbing the screen going, why did I write this?
That's so ugly. That's so hacky. Why did I do that? Yeah. So, I think we shouldn't put too much emphasis on JavaScript here because we are talking about Python anyway.
Too late.
Yeah, you cannot ring that bell.
So I have a question, then a newbie question about you're talking about microservices, right? You're saying that Python is not really the best.
Oh no, multiprocessing.
Multiprocessing. Is the reason for that? Is the reason for that because Python is really complicated to do with threads?
No, it's because of the global interpreter lock, the GIL.
Is it GIL or GIL? I don't know.
I always called it the GIL personally,
GIL,
but
yeah.
I think that's just an American accent bias there. But yeah, that's the only reason it doesn't work is because of the GIL. You can't run. There's limitations, and I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on multi-threading. I've done very, very little of it. Mainly because I haven't needed it. That's one of the annoying things about code. I think that's why we oftentimes feel like imposters, is because like, well, I've never done X. And I finally just come to terms with the fact that, okay, I've never done multiprocessing. Why? Because I haven't needed it. If I don't need it, why learn it? Because it's just going to gather dust. I'm going to have to go relearn it in 6 months to a year anyway. So I'll just wait until I need it to learn it, and then take the 2 days, figure out what on God's green earth I'm doing, and then do it.
Yeah.
But I do know, I was watching some interesting talks on it, and the whole problem with the global interpreter lock, you would think that, okay, well, if that's what's preventing true multiprocessing is the fact that Python only has access to this one. Someone's probably going to correct me on this because this is Python, we're pedantic, but one thread. It's got access to one thread and it can't leave that thread. And you can't do true multiprocessing with only one thread. You can do, multitasking where you switch between different things. That's all Python threading does. Do a little of this, little of that, little of that, little of that. You can't run two things concurrently in Python because you can only work on one thread.
Yeah.
Unless you were to spin up an entirely separate process altogether, and then that gets into a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
So you would think removing the GIL would be this really easy thing. They just take out that lock and everything works. Well, apparently not. There's some really interesting stuff talking about the ongoing GILectomy, which is the attempt to remove the global interpreter lock from Python. And all of the really non-normal things that just like it's weird. It's just weird the problems that they have. I'm trying to think of a particular technical word here. I almost want to say non-isometric, but I think that's probably not it. Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. But you get the idea.
Yeah, I know it's not easy to remove that because I know you can have options to do that with Scythe, but again, it's not like you can't do it with everything.
Sure.
So I guess like if you remove it like globally, then disaster will happen. At least like for now, maybe like until maybe 10 years later, someone rewrite a lot of stuff.
Well, that's what the Galectomy's doing. They're trying to rewrite the interpreter to work with this, but yeah, they're having to implement a bunch of things. Although I have to admit, as soon as you said Scythe, my blood ran cold because that is the that was complicit in a project. I tried to write a game back in 2016 called A Mission, and it never got to shipping. I never shipped it because I built it in Kivy, which looked really promising. Turns out you can't ship Kivy, or you can't package Kivy rather, on Linux because of Python. And there's one little bug in the setup.py file for Kivy, the Kivy GUI toolkit, where if you do pip install Kivy Python, because Python is a dependency, or even Swift, if you try to install them in the same command, it won't work. Kivy won't be able to see Python. You have to do it in separate commands. Seems like a little tiny workaround, except for every single packaging tool on the planet relies on those being run in the same command. And I got Alan Pope involved of Snapcraft. Yeah. I got one of the core developers of Kivy involved. I got a Debian packaging expert involved. I got the assassin of, that's the screen name, of the app image project involved, and we could not get this thing working. So I hear Python and my blood runs cold, but I think it's mainly just, I really have to blame Kivy's setup file for that one, not Python.
Can you make a pull request to that and suggest some changes? Or they will just ignore you?
I wouldn't know what to change. I wouldn't know what to change, to be totally honest. I mean, for crying out loud, the developer who, from that project, who saw this, he couldn't figure out what to change. His assessment was, okay, this file is painfully broken. I'm like, I'm not even touching this with a 10-foot pole. I'm just going to go learn Qt.
Wow. It sounds like a difficult problem to solve then.
So you gave up on the game then?
Well, I'm gonna eventually rebuild it in Qt, but it's just finding time is tricky.
Yeah.
Cool. So, speaking about time, Mr. Time Lord, do you want to tell us what your book is all about?
Yes. So my book is based on an article series that I've been running on Dev for a while called Dead Simple Python. Basically, I started this because I couldn't find a decent explanation for how to use or how to do a Python project structure. Couldn't really find any one canonical tutorial. There's some really great articles on it, but none of them are really fully complete. And so you run into all these problems and you have to hack your way around. And I think most people know the pain of trying to get their Python project to run. So I finally decided to just bite the bullet, do all the research, and then write one article that explained it. But as I was writing, I was thinking this would make a really good series. So I started this Dead Simple Python series because I thought we need to get out of this trap of all the tutorials for Python I find are either for the absolute beginner and skim over all the difficult stuff and it's just a really nice spam and eggs tutorial. Or it's really super specific and complex and involves 6 libraries you don't need, 5 words you can't even pronounce, and concepts that would make most PhDs a little bit nervous. And so there's this canyon in the middle where it's like all the rest of us are, and we're looking around going, I just want to run a module. How do I run a module? And so I thought, well, I'd like to fill that gap. So I started writing this series, and about halfway through writing it, I get contacted by a publisher about possibly writing a book, and I do some look at the publisher. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to work with them. But then that got me thinking, somebody thinks my writing's worth something. So I wonder if No Starch Press would be interested in this. So I pitch it to them, And this is, of course, the same No Starch Press that did Automate the Boring Stuff with Python and Python Crash Course and all those good books. And lo and behold, they were interested, and I got a contract. I was. You can ask my mother. I actually screamed for about a minute. Like, yes!
Yeah.
because this is a momentous occasion, and so I was really excited to do that. But writing a book is hard.
Yeah.
It's not my first book, but it's my first tech book, and it's a really hard thing to do, because here I'm trying to cover. I want to go into all this depth, all this detail. The tagline for Dead Simple Python is, "This is Python for impatient programmers." I'm assuming you already know another language. Maybe you've even dabbled with Python a little bit, but you want to know how to write Python idiomatically, how to do it right, how to make it work on the first try instead of having to try to approximate to find this one obvious way that obviously most beginners aren't Dutch. They don't know what the one obvious way is.
It really sounds like my thing for impatient programmers.
Yes.
Exactly. Because you pick up most Python books, it's like, here's what a variable is. It's like, I don't care what a variable is.
Yeah.
I don't need to know this.
Yeah, I don't need to know how to write the for loop and like all these, because I have programmed in other languages before. Just tell me the syntax, I'll be able to do
exactly. That. And of course, then people try to write that. We get the Python tutorial, but then you miss the beautiful thing. Like, okay, yeah, you can write a for loop, but it's using iteration. So don't just learn how to write a for loop. Learn how to, as Ned Batchelder puts it, iterate.
What is an iterator?
Like exactly. And so go really deep into this. And so instead of skimming the surface going, here's how programming works and here's how Python does it, I'm going the opposite way. I'm going, here's the technical nitty gritty of how Python's actually doing this, and here's how you use it. And here's the easier way to use it. And I build layer upon layer until by the time you're done, this is the reason the book's called Dead Simple Python. Looking into it, you're going, this is not simple. You're going to spend 30 pages talking about iterators. What's wrong with you? You get to the other side of the 30 pages to go, that has got to be the easiest concept I think I've ever learned about. That is so simple. It's just like with Python. It's not obvious looking into it. It's obvious once you know it. And then you go, how did I miss that for the past 3 years?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about Python is that, is like you said, I totally agree. There's a lot of tutorials for absolute beginner who have like no coding experience, but for like other people who get a coding background, they would be like, so what's the different thing about Python? Like, because my path was like, I did have some programming experience before I really started learning Python, and then my question would be like, I would, when I started, I noticed it now because like some of my curly who write in JavaScript start to write some Python, and then they would be writing a for loop in a very weird way that they loop for the index. Like that's what I did when I first did Python, because that's how you do it in C. That's how you do it in other programming languages. And so like explaining those gaps is very very. I think it's very good. I'm interested in your book now. Yeah.
I'm excited to finish it. Yeah, it's just that it's those little things. It's like Python. Learn to write Python as Python. It's and of course people complain about like the dynamic typing system, and I find most people complain about it because they don't know how to use it. They're working against the system instead of with it. It's like when you learn to use it. It's interesting. I love C++ with all my heart. And by C++, I really mean that mythical C/C++, because I'm using C paradigms a lot. Probably much to the shock and horror of some C++ expert viewers. I don't trust abstractions blindly, if you haven't caught that yet. But, I go back over there and I'm like, I have to deal with types again. I like Python. I don't have to deal with types in the traditional sense. I deal with capabilities. I don't have to think about type. I think about capabilities, and I build everything around that. You want to build an object, you want to make it an iterator, add the dunder next functions. Boom, it works. You want it to work with the context. Okay, enter and exit. You can add any of these abilities if you know what the dunder methods are, if you know what the paradigms are. You could just make it do whatever you want. It gets out of your way, and I think that's very rare among programming languages.
Yeah, that's very interesting bit that, in Python, basically what you are is actually depends on what you have in your attributes. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought, like my experience, I started with Java I mean, I started with Python, but I never actually got really serious with Python. Then I ran into Java, and I started getting more serious with Java. And then I went back into Python, and I thought I understood Python when I was studying Java, until that day that I decided to write a program that was supposed to be written in Java, and I was like, well, I can write this in Python. And I was trying to hard code getters and setters in Python. Yes. And I got Chuck to fix my program.
Oh dear. Well, and I think Python does an amazing job of informing other languages anyway, because once you know how Python handles object-oriented programming, it completely revolutionizes the way you write Java or C++. It's like you do private, and you know what? Wait, why am I making this private? If I'm just going to write a getter and setter that just blindly set, why am I even doing this? And it just changes the entire way you think about object-oriented programming.
Yeah. And also, if you think about design patterns, like all the design patterns that are made for object-oriented programming, and even a little bit of functional programming, as soon as you run into Java, it's like, wait a second. So there is no design pattern for iterators. There are no design patterns for like decorators. It's its own design pattern. It was mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your accident? Like, what happened?
I could, and it'll also explain that Time Lord bit, by the way, because I'm not. Some people might hear that and think, okay, he's either an egotist or insane. I hope I'm not an egotist, and I don't think I'm insane, but then again, people rarely do. They're coming to take me away, haha. So basically, I've had 2 head injuries in my life, one when I was 2, and one when I was 16, and both of them fundamentally changed my personality. I don't obviously remember anything about when I was 2, but I know the stories from my mother, and I know that I had fallen down a staircase. There had been a fuel spill in the yard, and I was very much sensitive to petroleum at the time, and I had a seizure, and I fell down the stairs. I hit the back of my head on the stairs. And I couldn't even remember who my mother was. I lost everything I knew up to that point. And the doctors were not concerned until I couldn't make the animal noises. He can't recognize his mother. That's not a problem. He can't make the sound of a cow. Now we're worried. American medical system. Fantastic. Anyway, so I had to relearn a lot of things, but it fundamentally changed my personality because it just, my interest and my skills kind of changed, and I had been an early reader. I had already been reading by that point, but I had to relearn a lot of things. So, that was just somewhere off the background, though. I never knew about that except for the stories. But I did still have those periods of where it was just frustrating. It's like, I should be able to do this thing, but I just can't do it. So, throughout my life, I had a love-hate relationship with math. I loved to hate it. I didn't enjoy math at all. I wanted to be a doctor. That was my dream. I was going to go into the medical field. When I was, I think, like 5, I decided I was going to be a pediatric trauma surgeon. I'm not sure what's weirder, that the 5-year-old would be that specific or that he could even pronounce that. But that was my goal. And that was what I wanted to do. I had a copy of Grey's Anatomy. I mean, I loved the medical sciences. I was fascinated by it. There would be like, trauma life in the ER, the show actual doctors. It would, I loved it. It was fascinating. I wasn't grossed out by it, even just like, oh, this is amazing. And then high school, so I was homeschooled for most of my life. Thank God, because of what was about to come up. I was on the phone with my contact teacher. I was in a program where there was a state-appointed teacher who worked with my mother to develop my specific curriculum, and so then I could do my schoolwork at home. My mother was my primary educator, but then there was support of an actual state-appointed teacher, and I could get the resources we needed, etc. Anyway, so I'm on the phone with him, and this is like the last day of my sophomore year. At this point, I was a 4.0. I was reading a college-level material. I was AP in a lot of different things. And I was walking down the stairs. I really don't have a good relationship with stairs. I stepped on the top step, and we were living in a place where the property manager did not believe in making repairs, and the step gave way, and I fell down 7 steps. I would have been fine, except I hit my head on the banister.
Ooh.
And I didn't lose consciousness, but I was very confused suddenly, and I couldn't really get a grip on what was going on. And over the next few days, I just gradually lost the ability to read. I couldn't, my cognition went out the window. My ability to communicate was basically gone. I could speak, but I couldn't do so coherently. I couldn't get a thought out. And actually, after that initial injury, I after about like the 3rd day, I can't remember nothing for like several months. It was just a blank in my memory. And I remember a few months after this, sitting in a neurologist's office, and because I didn't have, and it was a closed head injury, and because there wasn't anything on the CT or the MRI, he's saying, well, it's not, we can't really tell if you, so any disabilities you think you have, you're just going to have to live with. So if you think it's really that bad, you might as well just give up on college now. And he walks out. And I was crushed. I was absolutely devastated. My entire future was just gone in an instant. And my mother, God love her, did not take that neurologist at face value. So no, we're going to get a second opinion. And so she took me to see Sharon Ashman at Children's Hospital, Seattle. And she's a neuropsychologist. And Sharon Ashman spent like several hours, she and her team, assessing me. And she wound up saying, you know what that doctor said was wrong. No, you can recover. It'll be a lot of work, but we are not going to accept where you are now as the new normal. We're going to get you as close to your original normal as we possibly can. And they worked with me. They worked with my mother. The teachers at Columbia Virtual Academy worked with me. And I had to go back to pre-K material. I could not even do grade school. I was failing pre-K. I couldn't even read. And they worked with me, and I fought my way back up. It took me 2 extra years to finish high school. And I fought my way back up. I graduated to 3.98. They expunged 2 years off my record. I graduated to 3.98 GPA. I regained my ability to read. I scored a 5 on the AP English, 5 out of 5. 2,000 composite on the SAT. So I made a stunning recovery from not being able to read to being able to do all of this. But in that process, I also discovered that math no longer scared me. It made sense. It clicked. I could actually, and this is going to sound weird, I can actually think in 6 dimensions. Alternative timelines, alternative logic systems, whatever, that does not bother me. I can actually, which is great in intercultural communication, because I can set aside my entire logic system, pick somebody else's up, and see everything through that lens. And that's one of the reasons I joke about being a Time Lord, is because I just see things at this really weird level. I can visualize algorithms in the computer and move them around, and it's strange. So I am a minor traumatic savant. And I will leave people in the dust. I don't mean to. I'll just start going on, and they'll just kind of stare at me like I've grown a second head, and it's like I think I just Time Lorded them. But that's why I started, joking that I was a Time Lord. It's because, I'm still me under here. I'm still the same Jason C. McDonald that I was when I was 1, when I was 7, when I was 14, when I was 18. It's just that it fundamentally changed my personality, but the core of who I am is unchanged. Yeah. So you can literally say I've regenerated twice. This is my 3rd form.
That's your journey, I would say. Like, your journey is just like, go from here to there, like slightly different because of that happened, but yeah, you just go through a journey. And I've actually read some documentaries about people become a genius after some injuries, like head injuries. So I think you're one of those that become a genius after that.
Well, I had a high IQ before that. You have to understand. I was tested when I was very little. I had an extremely high IQ. I kept that, but it changed. I'm never going to go into the medical field. My proficiency for the medical sciences, my interest in the medical sciences is gone. All traces of that are gone. I can't wrap my head around biology to save my life. but I love programming, and that's something I hated. I tried to learn programming when I was 14. I tried Python then. That was my first Hello World when I was 14. I hated it. I just despised the whole process.
I think it's a good news for the Python community, like that now we have you here, like that joining us, rather than like if it never happened, you become a doctor rather than a Prime Minister. So.
Well, as long as you can put up with the techno babble and the bow ties, you know, I'm happy to be here.
We love your forward dash.
Well, thank you.
What a story, though. Yeah, what a story.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, and it's given me an amazing platform because I've spoken at colleges, at universities. I've had 2 different professors actually give me their class for the day and just go, here, you run the class for the day. You know, because I talk about, I have a speech I give called A Field Guide to Common Nerds, which talks about how to communicate in this industry without getting your head lopped off. And, but I tell students that, you know, whatever you're facing, you know, it's so easy to call these things disabilities. I hate the term mental disability. I hate it because I am dyslexic. I have this head injury. I know people who are ADD or ADHD who have autism, you know, various degrees of the autism spectrum. You know, the list goes on and on. These people aren't broken. They're not defective. They're not buggy. It's not like their firmware is buggy and needs an update. They have a uniquely powerful mind, but it's not a mind that fits into this nice, neat little mold that, you know, we call normal. Yeah, I have never met a normal person anyway, so I think we can safely say that normal is not there. There's no such thing as normal. We all have a unique mind. Some people have a mind that's a little more unique, but it doesn't mean they're broken. They have superpowers that the rest of us can only dream about. And they have their kryptonite that goes along with it. We all have our kryptonite and we all have our superpower, but the thing is that I believe everyone has it in equal proportion. If they have a lot of power, they have a lot of difficulty to go along with it. And the trick is, instead of focusing on the kryptonite and going, okay, I am broken, I'm defective, I need to fix this, you learn how to cope with this, you accept it as part of life. And then you learn how to maximize that superpower, how to go, you know what, I'm dyslexic. That is why I can rearrange things in my mind. That's what dyslexia is. It's the ability to rearrange the world around you. You will not find people with better spatial reasoning than dyslexics. But it just happens on the page without us wanting it to. So we compensate for the reading difficulties and we maximize on our ability to rearrange the world.
Yeah.
You know, learning that is a huge part of success.
I would say my analogy is like you're comparing, like, let's say those people are like the app on your phone, like you're comparing them with, you know, programs that run on your laptop or on your computer. That's like, it doesn't mean that it's not functional. It's just like it works differently because it's, you know, it's supposed to work on your phone. So
exactly. Yeah. I love the term. I'm not a very politically correct person, though I have a deep appreciation for diversity. And I think we do need to move really push towards diversity and supporting that in the way we speak. It's not political correctness. It's learning to value people in the way we speak. I love the term neurodiversity. I love that entire concept because it's just reframing our perspective. These people are not defective, they're diverse. And we learn to say, you know what, we don't want you around despite your differences. We want you here because of them.
Right.
Amazing. What a message. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, would you like to ask anything, Chuck?
I think I would like to ask, like, I don't know about the time, but I think it's almost like the last question, I guess. So I want to know about DevTool, because like you are basically a star there. So so can you tell us a little bit about that?
You can't see my ears turning red, but they're turning red.
We can see your cheeks turning red, okay? We can see the cheeks.
I'm the one who's drinking beer here, so I don't know.
All I've got is my coffee, yeah. Well, Dev is an incredible place. I happened across it because I was following Ben Halpern's deliciously snarky practical dev account, and I love the memes. That's what sucked me in was the "oh really" posts. I love those fake book covers. And then when he mentions, "Hey, I'm starting up this community," the spun off the practical dev, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly. And so I started following. I'm like, this is neat. And I contacted Ben. I said, hey, can I start? Can I repost my blog post over here? He's like, yeah, be my guest. And I just discovered this is something so different than anywhere else online. I have seen so much toxicity in the programming community. I have been in forum wars. I have been in the middle of Stack Overflow blowups. I have seen some really I've seen and documented some of the worst human behavior in this industry. And that's where Field Guide Common Nerds came out of. And I was looking around going, finally, we have something here at Dev where it's not just, okay, well, everyone's welcome in theory. It's everyone's welcome in practice, to the point that we're tolerant of everything except intolerance. And I thought, this is so refreshing that we can bring up difficult tech subjects, that we can bring up, controversial viewpoints, and like, I don't like JavaScript. I'm not destroyed for saying I don't like JavaScript. People go, that's interesting. I do like it. Let's talk. It's so different. The dynamic is so unique. And so as I started rolling out the dev moderation tools, I'm like, hey, I'd like to help. And I was honored that they would trust me with, some of these tags. I mean, Python beginners, C++, C. It was like, I was just blown away that they would even want my help, and I was so honored. And it's been fun to be a part of it, and to just watch them build this absolutely incredible community. And I love being a part of it, but I really am such a small piece. I come up with some pretty nutty ideas that sometimes Ben and Jess think and Michael Farrington, the community manager, think are brilliant, and that's cool to have a role in that. But it's just, Dev is so much bigger than all of us. It's really groundbreaking, just the way they do things. I think the entire industry can take a cue from it, and it is because, I mean, in the wake of Dev starting up, we see that some of the stuff going on Twitter that previously would have been horrible. That someone like a lot of people remember the John Somnes debacle, and here he jumps on someone, and criticizes her based on her race and her color, and it's like, 20 years ago, he would have gotten away with it. Nobody would have said anything. 10 years ago, nobody would have said anything. But because we have this push towards, no, we want to create a safe place for everyone, the community pushed back and said, this is not okay behavior. We need to be diverse. We need to be inclusive. We need to be compassionate. Thank you, Alice Patel. And thank you, Compassionate Coding. It's like we have this push towards bringing humanity back into coding, and I think that's long overdue, and it's so cool to be a part of something like Dev that's on the front lines of that.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think you really have a very good point about this diversity and things. I'm really inspired, so thank you so much. And Lace, do you have anything else, or?
Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you, because we had a little bit of a conversation beforehand on prepping things for your Python, and I found out that he's our friend. He's a Mid-Mid Py fan. I was like, you need to come into the stage with us right now.
Yeah, well, it was super exciting. I'm like, yes, I get to be on this. This is awesome.
So again, thank you very much. What a pleasure, what an honor. And I am inspired, absolutely. It's an inspiring story, and you're a very inspiring person.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are inspiring. I feel inspired by you guys. You guys are a lot of fun to work with. Here we're all helping to kind of kick the tires on this Euro Python remote thing and get things rolling on it, and it's so much fun working with you guys.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of wrap up our interview, and we would love to, of course, see you more, Jason. And I think for the viewer, I would maybe post the link of your DAF account, of course, and maybe Twitter as well, so people can have more know what you're up to, more connection with you, and all this stuff. So.
Absolutely, yeah, I will gladly do that. Look, I got a lot of snarky stuff on my Twitter, and an original pun every Monday. So.
I think I saw the one last week. Yes.
Right. So yeah, I think that's it for the interview. So thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you. It was amazing. Thank you.
Bye. Hello. Hey, we're
Hello.
back. So yeah, it has been like quite long this week for the interview. It's super long. So we ain't gonna do any PyPI highlight this week, but stay tuned. We're gonna give you more next week. And yeah, I think that's it. I think we should all back to work and have a very nice week. So yeah, see you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
See you next week.
See ya.